So, the first thing I would like to talk about is the United States, what it is, how they have used this structure to steal our freedom. So, just the fact that some of you are here probably is an indication that you've already heard some of this. And you've already heard that the birth certificate is basically where our slavery begins. So today I just want to lay out a picture to you of sort of how it was done, so that we get an understanding of how we can remedy it. Because if you don't have the knowledge of how it was done, it's a little harder for you to know what you can do to free yourself. So the United States, there's actually 3 United States. There's actually 3 different types of United States citizens. There's the United States under the executive branch. Then there's the United States under the judicial branch. And then we have the original United States of America, which we have reference to as being under common law. Now, when they ask you, are you a United States citizen, on all the applications, are you a U.S. citizen? That is referring to the U.S. as is defined in the Black's Law Dictionary and some of the other old law dictionaries as being the 10-mile square of the District of Columbia. Now, most people think the United States is the landmass, but it is not. The United States of America, and written a certain way, even with some of the letters capital and some lower, is actually the reference to the original landmass. Now, how our freedoms were taken away is somebody created the United States, which is a corporation. And how that corporation is structured, we don't exactly know, but it's got a DUNS number. So it's, a operating corporation, business, whatever. Its business location is the 10-mile square of Washington, D.C. Then what was done was, very clever if you really sit back and look at it. The main corporation created 50 subcorporations, or we'll call them children. We will call the United States the mother corporation, and then we will call the 50 states the children. So the United States creates its entity and then creates 50 sub-entities. Now, they're not called Washington State, New York State, and so on. They're called State of New York, State of Washington, State of California, and so on. Now, they're all owned by and the mother, which is the United States, they're her children. Then they go a level deeper, and what they do with the next level is the State of Washington, State of New York, State of Texas, you name it. What they're doing is they're creating sub-corporations or sub-trusts or whatever you want to call them. We don't know exactly how they're structuring those, but they're creating a entity, a business entity, many business entities under each one of them. Now, what they do is they create this entity, the foundation for it, but they don't name it. They create numbers, they create everything in place. But when a baby is born and they get the mother to sign the SS-5 or the birth certificate agreement, now she signed away unknowingly that child's body is collateral for that business entity. So they take the name and that is how they create that name. They take the copy what the mother named the child, put it in an all caps corporate name, and use the child's body as collateral. Now, what people don't understand, we know there's a lot of gurus out there and people teaching that the birth certificate is yours and there's all this money, backing it, and it's yours and you should be able to access it and so on and so forth. Well, I'm going to give you a little scenario or a little story that I share with people to get you to see what actually did happen and how that is really not true in one sense. In another sense, it is. However, we know there's not money right now. There's only credits. That is not considered money anyways. So let's just take this scenario. Mrs. Jones has a new baby girl, and she names her Sally Mae Jones. Mrs. Jones' neighbor comes over to see the new baby, and she's, exclaiming over the baby. She's so adorable, and she loves the name. She loves Sally Mae Jones. And in the process, she tells Mrs. Jones she had decided to start a cookie company. She loves to bake cookies, and she's wondering if she can use the baby's name for her cookie company because she thinks it's so beautiful. Sally Mae Jones Cookie Company. And of course the mother is flattered. She's pleased that someone likes the name so well, so she agrees. And the neighbor lady says, okay, I'm going to bring some paperwork over. I'm setting up my Sally Mae Jones Cookie Company. I'm bringing some paperwork over, and I need you to sign just to agree that I can use that name and so on. And the mother says, oh, of course, no problem. So the neighbor lady brings these papers over, and she asks the mother to sign. Well, the mother's, distracted with her new baby, fascinated with her new baby. She doesn't read all the fine print on this paper. She just signs that, yes, in fact, the neighbor lady can use Sally Mae Jones as her name for her cookie company. What she did not know was that in the fine print, she had signed that her baby, Sally Mae Jones, was going to be liable for all the debts that cookie company had for the rest of her life. She had no idea. Now, as the baby grows up and all the debts are on her because of the mother's signature of something she wasn't aware of, does it mean that the cookie company is Sally Mae Jones's cookie company just because it has her name on it? No, it does not. Does it mean that that the proceeds and the credits that are sitting in an account for the cookie company's sales are hers? Again, no, it does not. So if you sit back and you look at it, this is the exact scenario that happens in the hospitals when a baby is born, and they bring the paperwork to the mother to fill. She just signs away her child's labor, the body, to be used as collateral for the bond which they write on that business. They always bond every business. They write a bond, and they're using the child's body and labor as collateral. That bond is called the birth certificate. And if you look at it, it is literally a certificate. It's got, your all your features, your border, your security. That is a tradable certificate. Now, when you go into trade, for those of you that know about brokerage and banking, when you go into a trade, you cannot trade the certificate itself. You actually trade the insurance wrap that is put on that certificate. In past times, it was called safekeeping receipts. Let's say you had a bond or a certificate of some kind that had a value to it. You would go to a company that offered safekeeping, which generally was one of the larger banks, and you would deposit your certificate, and they would give you a receipt called a safekeeping receipt, which was literally an insurance. Now, you could turn around and take that safekeeping receipt, or insurance wrap, let's call it, and you could put it into trade on any trade platform, stock market, whatever. So, in essence, that's what they're doing with that certificate. The certificate itself isn't being traded, but they put an insurance wrap on it, which is given a number, which is, you guessed, the Social Security number. That is the insurance wrap that is placed on that certificate, and the baby's body is the collateral, is being used as collateral. So we know many of you have probably, they've made it a lot harder in more recent years, but in the past years, there was a way that you could go and you could actually put in that Social Security number and you could actually see the trades happening with multiple different countries around the world. So when we look at that and we see how it was done, we see that it's critical to go back to the basis and contest that original contract because there was not full disclosure. In the law, if a contract does not have full disclosure on both sides, full disclosure to all parties, it is null and void. But you have to first know there wasn't full disclosure. If you don't even know that, then how can you even null and void it because you're not even aware? Now, what these people do and have done for years is they use the default system. And most of you know what the default system is as well, or have at least heard of it. Let's just say you are a contractor, and you go and you do a job for somebody, you complete it, and you send them the bill, and they don't pay. They refuse to pay, or it drags out. There's a remedy that they have for contractors, a contractor's lien, mechanic's lien, whatever they call it. And to do that, they have to be in default. And we know that default, you have to notice somebody. And you have to give them X amount of days. And when you get no response, it's default. It's default by non-response. So what these people actually do is they will notice this. First of all, as a child in the school system, they have you learn the Constitution, don't they? Have you ever wondered why they have you learn the Constitution? And then if you have a traffic ticket and you go into court and you try to claim the Constitution, they tell you that the Constitution is not valid in any court, or it's not accepted in any court. Have you ever wondered about that? Well, they have you learn the Constitution as a child in school, as the default. So they can come back and say, well, they know the Constitution, and they still contracted with us via state driver's license, via checking, yes, I am a U.S. citizen on any form they happen to fill out. So they said, they're in default and dishonor. We're free and clear to do what we choose. So that's one way that they default you. Another way that's really huge is through movies. And they have been doing this for years, putting it out in movies. And my favorite one that I want to share with you is The Wizard of Oz. And it's very intriguing to look at the Wizard of Oz movie. So it's talking about Dorothy, and it's talking about Kansas. Now, their settings and their words and their places are chosen very meticulously for a reason. Now, why do you think they would use Kansas? Why would they use Kansas? If you do your research and you start digging, Kansas is the only state of the 50 states of the Union that was never federated, meaning they never ceded everything to the federal government. A lot of states, you can actually find the secession where they ceded their cities or their lands to the federal government. Kansas is not one of them. Kansas actually gave every inch of their land to the people via federal land patents which is, I think, the only state that has done that. Most of the states have chunks of land, that the railroad took or whatever, but it's just very unique. Kansas is the heart of America. There's this saying, you can do everything, but you can't touch the heart. Well, I believe that's kind of what has happened in America. Now, granted, they've done everything they could on that land to try to claim through the military addresses and the zip codes and all that. They've done the same thing in Kansas. However, the foundation or the root was not ceded to the federal government. So that's one interesting point. So let's go back to the Wizard of Oz movie. Dorothy in that movie signifies the people. Very, very interesting. The people are on the land. Kansas signifies the land. Keep that in mind. Just in that movie, the word Kansas signifies the land, going back to the land, being on the land. So Dorothy is the people, and this whirlwind comes and sweeps her off of her feet, off of the land, lifts her whole house, and takes her to this strange land of Oz, and sets her down in a strange place where she does not know anything. She does not understand what's happening. And from the beginning, all Dorothy wants to do is go home, back to Kansas, which is back to the land. So Dorothy, talks to different people, and there is one thing that's interesting, and there could be different ways of looking at it. When her house landed in the land of Oz, supposedly she landed on one of the wicked witches and killed her, destroyed her. That's something that would be interesting to delve into and see what exactly does that mean. I know it's meaning the people have a lot of power, but still, it is an interesting scenario. Now, Dorothy is, asking, really wanting to find her way home back to Kansas from the beginning. So, she is met by the Good Witch of the East, I believe it was, and who informs her. Let's see, I can't remember the story word by word. Probably some of you know it better than I do. Anyway, to make a long story short, she is going to meet with this Wizard of Oz. Supposedly the Wizard of Oz can take her back to Kansas, her home, the land. And you look at us, how many wizards have we followed, gurus have we followed, saying they're going to take us back home to the land. That's what we all want. I know for myself personally, it's been many. And, when you get behind the curtain, you're disappointed. Right? So, she's on this journey. She's, picks up companions along the way. And, her little dog Toto, and, the story. And as she's journeying, she goes through all these dangers and all these different things, and she just thinks she's never heard of before, just didn't know was there, wasn't aware of. And at some point in her journey, the Wicked Witch of the West, and you got to look at this too, the West is the Western culture. They are considered the belly of the beast worldwide. And the Good Witch of the East is actually the Eastern culture, which is all back to nature, back to, your natural remedies, your natural healing. I mean, that's where we can look at that scenario on those indications in that movie. But anyway, as Dorothy's traveling, she is kidnapped by the flying monkeys, the policy holders, the policy controllers, whatever, enforcers, which we can look at as police. Police doesn't mean police, it means policy enforcer. Okay? So she's kidnapped And how many people do you know that that's happened? Traveling peacefully along, this or that happens. Okay? So, the flying monkeys take her to the Wicked Witch of the West, to her home, and she's imprisoned. She's jailed, right? And she's forced to slave away for the Wicked Witch of the West, day in and day out. And one day she's scrubbing the cobblestones with her bucket of water. And I don't remember the scenario, but the Wicked Witch was taunting her in some way. And she got so angry. The anger was building up for all that time, all that wasted time. She's sitting there slaving for the Wicked Witch. And so what does she do? She picks up her bucket of water and she throws it over the Wicked Witch's head. And the Wicked Witch starts crying out, "Oh, no, no, no." But at the same time, she's melting. And she's melting until she turns into a puddle of water on the cobblestones. She's gone. Now, this is seriously something we want to look at. Water. What does water signify? So we know that water is one of the most powerful substances on the planet. It can break down and wear away stone. It is the most potent solvent that we have. So water actually signifies full solvency. Very, very interesting. Because under the law, to be fully solvent in America, one needs to hold 21 pieces. Well, 20 pieces was the original. If you add 21, you go over the mark of basic solvency and you become $1 over. Now that shows that you are a creditor, no longer considered a debtor in this system. So that's what full solvency is. When you come in with a bond backed by 21 pieces of pre-1933 silver dollars, we recommend Morgans. Morgans seem to have a little bit more silver in them than peace dollars. Now, you can use peace dollars, but, we've been told that Morgans are the most valuable. Now, why pre-1933? Because prior to 1933, what the Treasury printed was not in bankruptcy. They were actually solvent at that point. After 1933, when the bankruptcy was put in place, then everything became debt. So it's pretty important to get ones before 1933. So now we have full solvency, right? And now we go back and look at the movie. What happens? It dissolves the power of the Wicked Witch of the West over you, the people. It dissolves that power that they were using to hold you as hostage when all you want to do is get back to the land, right? So very, very, very interesting concept. And again, as I was saying earlier, this is part of their default process. So now Dorothy's free. She goes upon her journey. She continues on till she gets to the land of Oz, right? She's got to wear green glasses. We kind of know what that is. You hear about the rose-colored glasses, whatever. But she's got to wear green glasses so that things look a certain way, which is how the wool's been pulled over our eyes. We see through the glass darkly. We don't see as it is because we haven't had the knowledge to see that. We've only had the knowledge of what was put in our heads as a child in school and from church and from, every other place, how it was told us and how they were, it's all by design. All the textbooks were meticulously put together with, especially the history. The history that's in the textbooks could be said to be almost a complete total lie. The history is not like it was. So she's going through and she's got an appointment to see the Wizard of Oz, right? And she's so excited because everyone's telling her that he can, basically do anything. He can send her back home to Kansas. So she goes before the wizard, and, it's scary. Scary. Sounds like, this huge voice behind the curtain and all this and that. But Toto, her little dog Toto, which can signify truth. Toto will signify truth. So the little dog Toto runs up and starts barking and runs up and grabs the curtain, knocks the curtain down, right? And what's behind it is a small little shriveled up man cowering behind the curtain. And Dorothy runs up to him and says, "Who are you?" And she's all, truth exposed who the wizard really was behind the curtain. And that's what's happening today. We see this happening all the time. So we know the story, how the story goes. Dorothy was very disappointed. The wizard told her no. He was just a man that happened to land here and decided to make something for himself, right? And he couldn't help her get home. He had no idea how to help her get home. And Dorothy's so disappointed. Then she meets with the Good Witch of the East, and she is given the silver slippers. Now, in the original movies, the slippers were silver, but it was very obvious, a little too obvious. So when they came out with the updated movies, they made the slippers ruby. So the Good Witch of the East gives her the silver slippers and gives her instructions, right? She has to clap the slippers together 3 times, say something, and she will be back on the land. Right? All right. Now let's look at this. We go back to the water scenario that dissolved the power of the Wicked Witch of the West to hold the people hostage. That's full solvency. Now at the end, what actually takes people home to the land is silver. They're telling us all of this in this movie right in front of our eyes, because that's how they play the game. They have to have you in default and dishonor before they can move in and actually do it. So I don't know what year the Wizard of Oz movie was put out, but it was a very long time ago. I'll have to look into that and research it. How close was it following the bankruptcy of 1933 that it was put out? Anyway, it's just a very interesting scenario, and it shows us what the plan was and what we agreed to, and also how we can become solvent, how we can get back out of it. And that's why we as ANPC International put together packages for you to, number 1, perfect your title. That is critical. When you perfect your title, it rebuts all the assumptions that was put in place when your mother signed the SS5 as a baby, giving your body over as collateral to the United States Incorporated to back their certificates and to put it into trade. If that is unrebutted, you're a minor or a child all your life. It doesn't matter if you're 80, 90, 100 years old, you're still considered a child. And each district has a district attorney who is the father of that minor. So until that assumption is rebutted, you are simply a minor child in that district, and the father is your district attorney. It's scandalous, but that's how it was done. So once you have your perfected title done, and it's taking that birth certificate, turning all the reversionary interests back to the United States Incorporated under House Joint Resolution 192, which stated that when after the bankruptcy, the United States became liable for all the debts because they'd left us no money to pay. How do you pay a debt with a debt? Right? So, once your title is perfected and all the notices go out to all the head offices, you get your signature receipts back on your mail cards. You also want to set up a trust so that you can move in the public in a container. Your trust moves for you. You're supposed to stay on the land and stay private. Keep your feet on the land, right? So that your trust entity can move for you in your place without you having liability. And the bonds the ANPC International does for you is taking your 21 pieces of pre-1933 silver dollars and creating a bond, making you a freeholder on the land. Now look up the freeholder. A freeholder is a very high title. It's higher than king, queen, president. Freeholder is really the highest title you can have. And that is what weakens or removes the power of the Wicked Witch of the West to hold you hostage. We've got to understand that. Now, once this stuff is done, you still have the freedom to contract, and you can recontract with these people at any time. That's why it's so critically important for you to understand contracts. And we'll address that in another series. But as of right now, we want you to get the understanding of what happened, how, and to open your eyes to see how you were defaulted and what can be done with it. What can be done about it. Once the silver bullion bond is mailed in, a copy of it to the state treasurer, and the fact of a freehold bond, and your perfected title has gone through the system. Now, some people actually do the bond first, and they want their bond enclosed with their perfected title, which is great because you're perfecting your title, but you're also showing them that you're fully solvent. There's no way that they can constitute you as a debtor. So it can be done either way, but some people really want that bond in with their perfected title. But all in all, it's a very powerful process. Once you get that in place, you need to seriously understand contracts. Any contract or agreement that needs to be made should be made by your trust, never again by you or your straw man name. So that's the basis of the structure of how the defaults were done upon us and how we have been being held as hostage for many years. Hopefully this shines light on this situation, because we have many people that are so frustrated, so angry. We have many people imprisoned for long prison sentences for nothing. It's all monetarily. You got to understand that when your body is being used as collateral on one of those bonds, to take the body into the warehouse, which is the jail or the prison, is like getting a safekeeping receipt. They can actually do the trades on that bond, that certificate, on a lot higher level when they're holding your body as collateral in a jail or a prison. So everything's about money. Everything's about that bond. Just like as if you were going to trade a bond that's backed by silver, you've got to go put your silver in a warehouse in some place that gives you a safekeeping receipt to do your high-level trades. It's the same thing. Your body is just collateral. And you look at the Bible, you look at Revelations, it clearly talks about it. It talks about the beast, Babylon buying and selling souls of men. That's exactly what we're seeing today. So hopefully this gives you a strong vision and perspective and helps you understand. I would encourage you to listen to this more than once and really even write down on paper some of the key notes. Even draw yourself diagrams to see what has happened and so you can see moving forward how you can build a protection for yourself, your family, your children, your children's children. It's critically important if we do not want our following generations to continue on in the slavery that we have been in for all these years. So hopefully that gives you some insight, and we will talk with you on the next series. Peace.